Hello. I always feel like a twat saying hello to myself. It's a bit weird. Today I wanted to come on and share my tips and how I beat postnatal depression, postpartum depression. And don't know if beat's the right word, manage, control. I guess beat, because I don't have postnatal depression anymore, so I guess I did beat it. So first and foremost, I want to say if you think you're suffering with a mental illness, I am not a doctor at all. If you think you may be suffering from any form of mental illness, then please don't listen to some weirdo online. Go and seek help, whatever that may be. Ideally a GP or something. Do you know what I'm saying? So I suffered with postnatal depression after the birth of my first daughter, and it lasted a long time, a few years. It was really bad, it's quite severe. I went to the GP twice and I attended therapy for a long time and I took medication for a few months, stopped stupidly and went back on medication. So I've done therapy and medication together at the same time, and I learned a few things along the way that I felt really helped me in my postnatal depression, and I feel like it could help other people. So one of the most important things I ever done to help feel better was to find support online. People always say you should find your mum tribe and that group of friends, that circle that you can share with and get supported with. And I think a lot of people neglect to realise that you can find that online. One of the most important things to know if you think you're suffering from postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety, or any kind of stress or strain in parenthood is that you're not alone, and there's a vast world on social media and online. There's blogs, there's Pinterest that actually has a lot of good information, there's Facebook groups, there's Instagram, just loads of accounts created specifically to talk about motherhood, parenthood, but I'd say there's quite a lot for motherhood. I don't tend to see a lot of fatherhood, and I don't know if that's just because it's not there, which probably isn't, or that I just tend to gravitate towards mothers because I'm a mother. So I would say I found my tribe online. When I first was diagnosed with postnatal depression, or rather when my partner pushed me to go and get diagnosed for postnatal depression, it was because he had read loads online about how women changed after the birth of their kid. When I eventually listened and got my diagnosis, then I went online. I found blogs of other mums sharing how they felt. From the blogs that I read online, I eventually moved over onto Instagram, and this is where I found just my tribe. That's the only way to describe it. I found other mums feeling the same way as I did. I felt other mums under the same strain as I did. I felt other mums saying the same things that no one else really said. And then as I made an account and started to share my feelings and how I was getting on, or my depression, then people started to chat with me and I would chat with them, and that's where I got my tribe, and that's where I've met some really good friends now. But online was where I really found the most support for my postnatal depression. I feel like online has a great community. Don't get me wrong, social media has a bad rep for a good reason, but also when you push past all the shite, push past all the shite, there are great resources there. There's great people on there. There's one account on Instagram that I love called Happy as a Mother. I'll try and add it down below somewhere. And somehow this account, I'm sure they're based in Canada, I could be wrong, but they always seem to post stuff and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I needed to see that. I needed to read that. Like, we're talking about rage, we're talking about we're talking about mental overload, we're talking about things that cause, like outbursts within yourself. It's talking about motherhood and the strain of it, and just those things that you're reading and you're like, that's me, that makes sense. There's also a Scottish account called Our Brave Heart, and I think she's amazing. She's just, you just pick up your phone and you see that she's wrote a post and it's almost like she's in your mind. Like, the posts are always spot on, they're always raw, they're beautiful posts, they're always so heartfelt, and that's a really important thing, to find posts that people have put their heart and soul into. and that they're honest, and that they're literally bearing themselves for their own healing and for your healing. And our Bravehearts, she does set up or run workshops to try and help mothers and go over like the shitty mum guilt or the pressures of motherhood or how you change and get lost in motherhood. I'll also link her below. I think she's an amazing resource online, and I'm so glad that I found her, and I'm so glad that I just feel like I'm surrounded in my little Instagram bubble with like-minded mums, people that struggle, or not struggle, I don't really like the term struggle, it's just people that are honest about parenthood and just really say that they got lost in motherhood and they kind of hated being defined as a mum, or yeah, that just really talk about their postnatal depression. And even if they've not got postnatal depression, they kind of highlight the stresses that come with parenthood that are exacerbated when you've got a mental illness. So with these accounts online, I'm not suggesting that you go on and, you know, DM them and message them and tell them your whole life story. Yes, that's okay. Sometimes I get quite a lot of messages myself or emails, whatever, and I don't mind. I enjoy people sharing their story with me. Like, it's a release and it's a solidarity, you know, it's a validation for you both. But please remember that these people are just people, usually not trained professionals or whatever, like myself. We'll just be online to share our journey in motherhood, and yes, we can support each other, but we can't always diagnose each other. What I think is the best method to do on social media is to find those accounts that you like, to find those ones that you really relate with and resonate with, and then in the comment section discuss, chat, engage. To me, that was the biggest way to find help, because underneath especially really taboo topics such as rage or anger or frustration in parenthood, you'll tend to find if a post is, you know, really going titty deep, that people will go into the comments and say, oh, I feel like that, or I've screamed at my kids, or I've rage yelled at my child. And you can kind of chat to other people there, and you can get that validation that you need, or you can get the, you know, just the weight off your shoulders that you may need sometimes. You can build up rapport with people, and you can just get chatting. I feel like that's really important, is to get chatting with other people. There's also groups on social media, especially Facebook, where you can find parenting groups or groups dedicated to mental illness and parenthood. I tend to find groups on Facebook a bit overwhelming sometimes, out of them as and when I need them, which is fine. However, groups kind of work on, you know, engagement all the time, and, you know, I just find them not the best method for me personally. I stick to Instagram and creating a bubble of like-minded mums and dads, a lot of dads, and engaging with them, chatting back and forth, building up a rapport so I can send a message or they can send me a message, and it's just as if you've gone to a mum group with really cool mums and they just get you, and there's no chat about sleep schedules, because that is boring as fucking sin. I would say the one warning with social media, or maybe two warnings, is not everyone's as nice as pie on there. So you have to be aware that people do want to sell you shit on there, and although they may look legit, they're actually just trying to sell you a mental health t-shirt because they just want to make money out of you, which is honestly probably one of the worst things on the planet. Or people use mental health hashtags as trends, or people just talk shit on there and use mental health as a way to boost engagement or profit. Some people are not genuine, some people say they're qualified when they're not. So I wouldn't necessarily go in and just buy shit straight away. I wouldn't go in and get courses straight away. I wouldn't sign up to things straight away until you know that that account is genuine and you trust them and you've maybe had a bit of engagement back and forth. Just be sure when you're going online and speaking to these people that they are who they say they are, like you're an 8-year-old child, because the adults get duped too. My whole life has been changed by social media, but I live quite a lot of my life now on Instagram. I'm not going to lie, I'm addicted to it, but I'm addicted because that's where my tribe are, that's where my friends are, that's where my support from all over the world belong, and this phone on social media, which makes me sound a bit sad, but it is what it is. The next thing I want to say about postnatal depression is to let it out, is to share it however you can share it. Some people choose to write it down and a blog and share it to the world. Some people make notes on their phone, some people write journals, some people speak it, some people draw it, some people video it. Do whatever you can to get it out of your head, because trust me, when it's out of your head, I don't know the psychology of it, but it takes the weight away immediately. Like, you're still going to be left with feelings or guilt or whatever, but it's going to take that away, that initial, shoulder tension weight. It's going to take it away, and you're going to feel so much better just by writing it down. For example, if I had a really shitty day and screamed at my toddler, which happened quite a lot, I would then stick a phone in my face and go on Instagram stories and share it. And when I watched it back, it made me make sense of what happened. And obviously I got people, replying or something and telling me how they felt, and then it made a lot of sense that I could understand that I was tired, or I was pushed to the limit, or I was really stressed about something else, then it wasn't necessarily the child. I was at some kind of limit and I just snapped and took it out on the kid. So what you're going to want to do is let out whatever the frustration, emotion, whatever it is inside that's beating you up or causing you upset, whatever it is, you're going to want to get it out, write it, draw it in your phone, I don't know, just get it out of your head, because it doesn't belong there. If you need to phone someone, or if you don't have someone to phone, seriously, just writing it down when you've got a time when the kid goes to bed, or I know that's really hard if you've got 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 7 kids, I don't know, I know it's really hard to get time to yourself, but try and make that time to write whatever that shit is that day or the previous day or whatever. Just try and let it out, try and release it, try and get it out. I like to write it on paper, or sometimes a post on Instagram or whatever. And generally what I find is when I'm writing it, and when I'm writing why I was angry or frustrated or upset, my brain tends to tell me the answers as I'm writing it. Whereas at the time when you're caught up in your emotion, you don't see what the actual truth and why you're like that, or why you're feeling like that. Sometimes it takes for you to write and to release and to let go of that weight to see why it happened in the first place. And if you know why something's happening, then you can try and change it, hopefully, or work through it. Some people choose to share their experiences, and that's great. A lot of people share them online and blogs, free blogs. You can share them on social media. You don't have to share them. You could write a letter and then just burn it and it's gone. Whatever you need to do to get it out your head and release whatever it is that's choking you, then do it. The next thing I found great solace in, which is kind of related to the first two, is to understand your illness. Now, I think a lot of people get ill and then just presume that they know their illness. This is my first time with mental illness. I've never experienced anything that I really know of, or to this extent, before. So I just I don't know, I just presumed a lot of it. But it's 5 years later and I'm still learning things about my mental illness and going, oh, that's why I did that, or that's why I behaved like that. Especially if you've never had it before. Things like sensitivity to noise, or if there's a TV on and a noise on and a kid's screaming and I just want to pull my hair and just scream, is an actual symptom of overstimulation, about being overwhelmed, and not that you just hate all this noise. Yes, you hate it, but there's a reason for it. I found a lot of this information online, especially on my social media, where people would say all these symptoms about their postnatal, or just symptoms of parenthood. Can you call it symptoms of parenthood? I think you can. But I think a lot of the times parents tend to internalise what they're going through and just presume that's who they are, or that's part of parenthood, which it can be sometimes, and it is part of parenthood sometimes. But there's a lot of things that we don't realise. Feeling like a really shit mother is sometimes a result of listening to intrusive thoughts in your head, and these intrusive thoughts that you don't want, hence call them intrusive, and that you don't need, and that will beat you and bring you down until you start thinking that that's actually who you are, like a shit toxic mum. When actually this is a result of intrusive thoughts, because you may have postnatal depression, or you may have an undiagnosed illness that you don't know about. When you start to learn about a mental illness, it starts to take off that pressure of feeling that's just how you behave, or that's just what you are. When you start to learn that there's all these different symptoms, it's not just being sad or lonely or withdrawn. There's a whole minefield of postnatal depression symptoms out there. And the more I learn about, the more I don't need to feel so bad or feel so guilty or just feel, shame for how I behaved now or 5 years ago when I had my daughter. I'm not saying that learning all these symptoms will magically heal you, but it will give you the skill to acknowledge them, to see them, and to become aware of how you are and how you're feeling. Now, the last tip I have about beating postnatal depression is probably the best, and it's probably the one I hate speaking about the most, because it just makes me eye roll, and that is self-love. You're not going to get better if you're beating yourself up. You're not going to heal from mental illness if you keep beating yourself up. You will never believe that you're the best parent for your child if you're a dick to yourself. They just do not go hand in hand. You need to accept what you're going through. You need to understand what you're going through, and then you need to be kind to yourself. You need to let yourself know that it's okay to be frustrated or upset, or to not love your baby, or to not enjoy parenthood, or to have regrets or have wishful thinking that you never had children, or to really just question your life choices. It's okay to have all these things. It's normal to have all these things within a level. Obviously, if you're going too far, go and see someone about this. But you can do all the sharing that you want, you can have all the tribes that you want, you can have this whole community of love and support that are there for you, but if you do not take that in and be nicer to yourself, then you're not going to get anywhere. You have to understand that you need to be as kind to yourself as you would be to another mother who's saying that they feel like a shit mum. You would say, no, you're not, and then you would tell them why they're not a shit mum, but you have to do that for yourself. It's the only way you're going to beat your mind demons. Humans have this tendency to focus on the negative all the time. So if you've screamed twice that day, then it's a shit day. But in reality, you've probably did 30 other nice things that your mind just kind of, poo-poos, and you focus on all the negative shit. And then you think negatively and you see yourself negatively. So what a good idea, and a lot of people do, is do a gratitude journal or do a positive journal where you know either things that you're grateful for, or things that were good that day and how you had a good day, and tell yourself that you're doing a good job, and don't be so hard on yourself. It's fucking hard. There's a reason why there's a load of people on social media with massive accounts batting their gums about parenthood, because it is rough. So if you think you are suffering from postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety, psychosis, or just parenthood, then know that you're not alone. Please seek help. Please don't be mean to yourself. It is rough, it's hard. Know that you're not alone. There's loads of crazy people like myself online that want to help. Clearly, why they're sitting here, half in their jammies, talking shit into a phone. People do care, people do want to help, and you can beat postnatal depression. I didn't think it was possible to love a newborn baby because I didn't love my daughter when she was born. It was a really horrible and dark time, but I managed to get over postnatal depression and have my second child, my son, who it was love at first sight, and it was that magical bond that people talk about. So what I'm trying to say is there is hope and there is life after postnatal depression if you're nice to yourself and if you're not a dick to yourself.